ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Winner of the 2024 West Virginia Broadcasters Association Excellence in Broadcasting Award for Best Talk Show.
Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day holiday. Welcome in. It's The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Going to open up our text line this hour. It's 304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. Well, here we are. We're at the end of college athletics for Marshall University, and we're getting ready for the start of college athletics for Marshall University. As track and field coming to an end, that means we get ready for football season and everything else in between. There is no off season for football, obviously. There's really no off season for college athletics, and there's a lot to get into. We touched on it a few days ago, and I think we need to talk a little bit more about it because, of course, with the ruling coming out, there's a settlement in place. The NCAA, the power conferences, they're going to essentially it's going to turn into semi-pro sports. College athletics is turning into semi-pro sports, and there's going to be about $22 million, $22 million, somewhere in that range. I don't want to call it a salary cap, but that's kind of what it looks like. And so the power schools and the schools, of course, will have the flexibility to use all of that money, going to be able to pay student athletes. So there's going to be a lot of questions still to be answered, including, well, how does Title IX work into all of this? That's going to be a big question. And, of course, you're going to have to see some programs maybe dance around, well, $20 million, that's kind of a lot even for a power school. So we'll get into some of that. I do want to talk about it because that's a big deal. And how does that impact schools like Marshall? Here in the future, you might see the scholarships be an issue because Marshall maybe can't afford to fund every scholarship, because that's going to be the big takeaway here eventually is there's going to be roster limits, but there's also going to be the opportunity for scholarships for everyone. How's that impact some of the other sports? Will Marshall be a contender in soccer here in the next few years when other schools are able to fully fund scholarships for all their players? Maybe Marshall can't. What's that going to mean for Marshall soccer? That's a bright spot for the Thundering Herds. I want to get into all of that with you, and, of course, I want to hear from you. Again, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We're also going to be talking to Dave Nitz. We haven't talked to Dave in a few years. Dave is the voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, and he's going into retirement. 50 years of being the voice of the Bulldogs from Milton, West Virginia. He's going to retire. He's even going to be able to come back to a class reunion. He hasn't been able to do that because he's working minor league baseball as well. The guy's active. So he's going to join us on the program. We'll talk to him in the next few minutes. So he's a guy that has a lot of connections to the area. He was at one time he worked under Gene Morehouse. Of course, that's Keith Morehouse's father, for those of you who maybe don't know the connection right away. And, of course, Gene dying in the plane crash. So that is a connection to Marshall there. And, of course, being from Milton, West Virginia, there's a connection as well. Maybe we can get him to come back and see a Coldcats game. That's starting next week, by the way. It snuck up on us, didn't it? I was talking to the boss earlier. We've got an organist for the Coldcats. How about that? I got to see a little bit of it today. He took a video and showed me just to kind of give you a preview. We're going to have organ music in the ballpark. And I don't mean canned organ music. I mean there's going to be somebody playing, and we're going to have organ music in the ballpark. That says baseball to me. I like it. I like organ music in hockey. I like organ music in baseball. I even like the organ music sometimes in the NBA. Of course, the NBA gets a little too busy for its own good now and then. Not for me. I like the old stuff sometimes. Speaking of the NBA, while we're on the subject real quick, hey, how about the Boston Celtics going to the championship, going to the NBA Finals? Talk about a program that has been a dynasty in the past, the Boston Celtics. Remember when the video games were just named Lakers versus Celtics? That was it. That was the game. I mean, there were other NBA teams in it as well, but it was Lakers versus Celtics. And the gimmick years ago, if I remember in my childhood here, was it was the playoff teams, not even the full roster. It was like the playoff teams that were in that. And, of course, you could play like 7-game series. It was EA Sports. And so it was Lakers versus Celtics. And there was a couple of spots on the floor. If you knew where those were, you find them. You can execute a move, and you couldn't stop it, like Kareem dunking. Nobody's stopping Kareem dunk. Nobody. So the Celtics are back. Could they be winning the championship? We'll find out. We're going to have those games on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. Speaking of games, Pirates off yesterday. Back in action tonight, taking on the Detroit Tigers. 6:15 is going to be our airtime right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. The Guardians yesterday fell to Colorado 8-6. Back in action tonight at 8:40 against those same Rockies. And the Reds got the victory over the Cardinals 3-1. They're back in action against the Cardinals tonight. Big news out of the baseball world. Angel Hernandez is retiring. What? Angel Hernandez is retiring. He's been umpiring since 1991. He's 62 years old. He's retired. Come on, go to 65, man. I know you want to enjoy life, but take a moment to think about this. Worked his last game on May 9th, and he is going to call it quits. Not worked the World Series since 2005. Last umpired a league championship game back in 2016. And, of course, his lack of playoff assignments is big of that. You know, there was no promotions. The crew chief had a lawsuit. So a storied career, a colorful career, but you know you're a big deal when we know who you are as an umpire. There are people who I am talking to on a daily basis who weren't even alive when Angel Hernandez became a Major League Baseball umpire. Our producer, for example, was not born when Angel Hernandez became an official, an umpire in the big boy league. Speaking of big time names, I was listening. Actually, I heard this on the radio when it happened. I was in the car, and it kind of took me as a surprise. But Bill Walton passing away, lost his battle with cancer, and man, let me tell you, he was a big deal in basketball. Injuries maybe, I don't want to say even tarnished the legacy. It didn't, but injuries, man, he could have been healthy longer. That would have been even a more phenomenal career. Of course, you know, he was America's favorite deadhead. He was colorful. You would always tune in. It was just magic to listen to him on a broadcast. I mean, he was a 2-time champion at UCLA, and he was 71, just 71. Also the NBA's MVP in the 77-78 season, member of the league's 50th and 75th anniversaries team. He was inducted in the Naismith Hall of Fame in 93. You might not remember this. He was picked in 1974. I was around then, by the way. I was like 2. Portland Trail Blazers. And he was a 2-time NBA champion, won with Portland and won with those Celtics that are going to make it back to the championship game and possibly be the champions once again. But a lot of younger fans probably, you know, if you're someone in my age, you know him from his time in the NBA. If you're someone younger, you know him as his time from the broadcasting ranks on ABC, ESPN. He's been around. He was named one of the top 50 sports broadcasters of all time by the American Sportscasters Association in 2009, and it was well-deserved. When you call a game, I want you to describe what you're seeing. I want to feel like I'm there. And when Bill Walton was on the game, you felt like your best buddy was there. And he knew what he was talking about, but you felt like your best buddy was there, and you never knew what he was going to talk about. That was the beauty of him. So sad to hear that. But I was actually just driving, coming back from somewhere, and I heard that on the radio, and it just made me pause for a minute, because what a legendary voice of sports passing away, losing the battle with cancer, age 71. Speaking of legendary voices, Dave Nitz joins us on the other side of the break. We're going to talk to the retiring voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs when we continue here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Experience the perfect blend of music and adventure at Whiz Bangers Ball, June 14th and 15th at the Summit, Bechtel Reserve, Glen Jean, West Virginia, with performances by artists like Tyler Childers, John R. Miller, Arlo McKinney, and thrilling activities like ziplining. Whiz Bangers Ball is sure to be the ultimate summer experience. Whiz Bangers Ball with Tyler Childers and 14 more great acts. June 14th and 15th, Summit Bechtel Reserve, Glen Jean, West Virginia. Tickets and more at whizbangersball.com.
Giovanni's Pizza. Fresh, hot, and tasty. Have it delivered right to your door. Giovanni's, the Italian place to be.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to our Tuesday edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So when I found out recently that one of the longtime voices of college athletics was retiring, I couldn't believe it. But it's true. Dave Nitz, voice of Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, is retiring after 50 years of manning the microphone. A Milton, West Virginia native. Hopefully he's going to be able to come back now and visit the home state a little bit more. Dave is with us on the program now. Dave, I don't believe this. You're not giving it up, right? I don't believe this.
Well, I guess I'm not really forced out, but I'll put it this way. I've been told it'd be nice for me to just go ahead and hang it up after 50 years. So I'm doing it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go someplace else and work if I find something. I feel like I have a few more years left in me. But we'll just wait and see what happens down the future on that.
Okay, so there is an opportunity for a return appearance. Dave is with us, of course, a Milton, West Virginia native, so we always love it when our own do well, no matter where they're at. So I guess the good news for you is, at least for the immediate future, we might see you back more in the Mountain State, at least a few times.
Well, hopefully so. I still consider West Virginia as home. I grew up in the Milton area, actually not in Milton, but a place called Saunders Creek, just outside Milton, about a couple of miles from Milton. So I consider that still my home.
So you'll get an opportunity, hopefully, to visit real soon. And that's a big change for you, though. When you're no longer doing this, all of a sudden you have – maybe, I don't know, you might already have your agenda set, but you all of a sudden have this free time. have you thought about it just yet? Hey, what's the days going to look like now that I'm not doing this on a day-to-day basis?
Well, that's the biggest concern, because I've been in broadcasting since 1961 when I started in Spencer, West Virginia. So that's all I've been doing in my entire life is broadcasting. So, I'm just keeping my eyes and ears open and see what maybe come down the road. Somebody looking for an older broadcaster that has some experience. I've done everything in radio except tinker with the transmitter, and I'm not going to do that.
No, you don't want to do that. Those
No. I've done everything in radio. I've been a disc jockey. I have been a news director, sports director. I've written copy. I've done production. So I've done a little bit of everything in radio, I think. And I tell young people that's the best way to do it. Do a little bit of everything around the radio station, because you never know when somebody's going to need something that maybe you have some experience in, and you go do it. And that's what I did from the start when I started in Spencer, West Virginia at the WSBZ, it was called then. And it was just an AM station. Now they have an AM and FM now there, but I've worked in Beckley at WJLS under Gene Morehouse. I worked at WKOY in Bluefield. I worked at WPAR in Parkersburg, and worked at 3 different stations in Ohio: Marietta, Ohio, Gallipolis, and Piqua, just north of Dayton. And after I worked in Piqua, got an opportunity, answered, I don't even know if they have it nowadays. There was a broadcasting magazine, and they had jobs in the back of that magazine. And I answered a box number, and it just said doing college play-by-play in the South, and possibly doing college sports too. So I sent a tape out, and it was to Don McDougal at WWNS in Statesboro. I didn't know where it was going to. I had no idea. And he returned after he got my tape and my resume. He called me and said, well, would you be interested in coming down here? And I said, well, I can. I'm working in Piqua, Ohio right now. And so anyway, I worked it out where I got a weekend off at the radio station in Piqua. And my wife and I, we had one child at that time. She was about 2 or 3 years old. Loaded everybody up in the car. We left Piqua. It was about 3 inches of snow on the ground. And there wasn't interstates back then, maybe a couple of them, not much. But anyway, we drove down through the Smoky Mountains into North Carolina, down to South Carolina, Statesboro, Georgia. Got there about 2 o'clock in the morning. And they had a hotel room or motel room for us. So we spent the night there, and I got up the next morning, and the sun was shining, and the birds were singing, the grass was green, and all that. And I told my wife, I said, I think I know what they're going to offer me. We'd already talked a little bit about money, but I said I don't know until after the interview. I was going to interview at noon with the general manager and owner of the station, Don McDougal. I said, I don't know what they're going to offer me for sure, but I think I'm going to take it. And he took me to a Georgia Southern basketball. Of course, they didn't have football back then, just football or basketball and baseball. So he took me to a basketball game that night at the old Hanner Fieldhouse. And so I went and watched the game and got to meet the coach and all that. And after we got through, Don said, well, here's what we're going to offer you, and are you interested? I said, yeah, I think I can handle that. I said, can you help me move? He said, yeah, we can do that. So anyway, I said, okay, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So we drove back to Piqua, started back the next day on a Sunday, and spent that night at my dad's house. He was living there in Barbersville in Guyana Estates. So we spent the night there and got up the next morning and drove to Piqua and gave him a 2 weeks notice and got everything set up for the move to Statesboro, and down we went. And, of course, worked there for about 3 or 4 years, I guess it was, maybe a little longer than that. But anyway, stayed there in Statesboro and did Georgia Southern basketball and baseball. Yeah, like I say, it was before they had football. So did work there, and then went back north a little bit to Parkersburg, to WPAR, and actually worked at WMOA in Marietta. And the closest I've ever gotten home, I guess, to Huntington was WJEH in Gallipolis, Ohio. And I'll never forget, it was right after the Silver Bridge went down into the Ohio River there at Point Pleasant. And I remember on the air, I was doing the morning show, and, you know, the ferries are running, you know, at certain times, you know, and doing that, you know, while they rebuilt another bridge there. And then ended up going to Piqua, Ohio, and that's where I ended up back in Statesboro again.
My guest is Dave Nitz, longtime voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, and he, of course, has got some free time now. I know, you know, as a broadcaster, you know, you never really have free time. You're going to be doing this until they turn the lights out. Is basically how it works. And back to your point, I point out, because I have an intern now who's working with us here, and I point out to these kids what you just said. Do multiple things in radio, because that's just the name of the game these days. You have to do multiple jobs. I do commercial production during the day, and then I do the sports show and other things, you know, as assigned. And that's how some of the more well-known broadcasters have gotten established, because they were doing something here and then transitioned into maybe a sports job.
Right. You just never know what's going to open up for you down the road. And that's why I feel like, you know, with the experience I have in radio, you know, I've had a couple of people that have talked to me about managing a station or being a program director, you know, and it would be staying where I am now here and be in this particular area, and it's just not hit the right chord right, I guess, yet. But, you know, I did football, basketball, and baseball for Louisiana Tech for 46 years. And then for the last 4 or 5 years, I've done nothing but baseball. I've walked away from the football and basketball. It just got to be too much for me, and the travel and the conferences and all that. I mean, gosh, we were in the Western Athletic Conference for 3 or 4 years, and, you know, it was all the way to Hawaii and Fresno and San Jose and Utah State and places like that, you know. So it got kind of, you know, burden for me, but, you know, I was able to do it because I enjoy traveling. I enjoy getting out and meeting people, and even had a part-time job since 1998 working for Enterprise Car Sales, taking cars different places that they had sold in Shreveport, and take a car to whoever, you know, and drop it off, and then they would fly me back to Shreveport. So I did that since 1998, and I've kind of walked away from that because that got to be a little bit of a hassle too. But I enjoyed doing it because I got a chance to meet people, and that was me. I was a people person. I majored had a business degree, and I ended up getting a journalism degree at Louisiana Tech. And so, but the business degree didn't fit me because I was sitting behind a desk doing nothing but figures all the day, you know, and I didn't like that as much as I did, and I enjoyed the journalism because I got to go out on the street, meet people, do interviews and things like that. So, you know, I've enjoyed doing that part of it, and that's something I'm going to miss.
Dave Nitz is with us, and going back to your early days just for a moment, when you were in Beckley and you were working with Gene Morehouse, that's a name that a lot of Thundering Herd fans here in Huntington either know because of the plane crash, or, of course, you know, Gene, the father of sportscaster Keith Morehouse. Can you paint a picture of what that time was like with Gene? Because for a lot of us still, we know Keith, but we don't know Gene, only the stories we've heard or heard about him.
Well, when I left Spencer, I decided to go back and go back to college, and I said, well, I'll go back to junior college in Beckley. It was Beckley Junior College at that time. So anyway, I did, and at the rooming house I was staying at, there was a young guy that had been working at WJLS, and he had just finished up, and I think he was from New Jersey, and he was going back home. And he said, Dave, he and I had talked a lot about radio. He said, you're interested in radio? I said, why don't you go see Mr. Morehouse about the part-time job at WJLS? I said, okay. So I did. We was only a couple of blocks away from the station there in downtown Beckley, so I went and visited. And he offered me, he said, okay, we need somebody to work the night shift, work in the evenings and, do the board on Cincinnati Reds baseball and other sports and stuff like that. And so I talked to Gene, and I told him the experience that I had in broadcasting and had done some play-by-play. And he said, well, might try to work you in, do some of the smaller high schools around Beckley. He was doing Woodrow Wilson High School football and basketball at that time. And so anyway, he would take me and he would show me things to do. Because I had learned everything I knew before then, I had done on my own. What I'd listened to other broadcasters. But he kind of took me and said, okay, Dave, here's how you prepare for a pregame, how you prepare for a game, and so forth. And he listened to some of my tapes, and he would critique it and say, I need to do this or that, and really kind of showed me, the only person I've ever run into that really took me by the hand and ear, so to speak, and showed me what to do and how to do it. And I worked there for, I guess I was there for about 6 months, and I was going back to Beckley College that fall, and that summer they had made me a full-time broadcaster at WJLS. And so anyway, that fall I go back to Beckley. I'd worked out with Beckley Junior College basketball team because I played 1 year at Fairmont State. And so anyway, I had to sit out a year or 16 months or something like that. I can't remember how long it was. But anyway, the basketball coach I'd worked out for that during that previous winter, he came to me there at Beckley Junior College, said, Dave, we've got a scholarship available. We'd like to offer to you to stay here at Beckley and play on the basketball team. And I said, I think it was Jack Cook, I think was the guy's name, or John Cook. Anyway, he said, I said, well, I've got a full-time job at WJLS, and I think my basketball career probably won't go much further than 1 year more year here at Beckley College. I don't know if I could get to a 4-year school and good enough to play or not. And I said, I'm going to have to turn you down. I'm going to stay in radio. I think that's my best bet. So anyway, I did. I stayed at WJLS, and about a few months later, Gene Morehouse comes to me, and he said, Dave, they got a sports opening, a disc jockey sports opening at WKOY in Bluefield. And he said, I know the general manager down there. I said, I'll call him, and if you're interested, you go down and interview with him. I said, okay. I went down there, and I didn't know what all was involved. They had 2 high schools there, one on the West Virginia side, Bluefield Beaver, and then on the Virginia side, it was Graham High. And there was also a black school, Park Central. And they all 3 played at Mitchell Stadium. And if they had conflicts, Park Central would play on a Thursday night, Beaver would play on a Friday night, Graham would play on a Saturday night, and sometimes I would do a Bluefield State game on a Saturday afternoon. And so I did all of that when I was in Bluefield, and the guy at Bluefield at the radio station said, hey, we're going to try to do some Bluefield Oriole baseball this summer. Well, that really ticked my interest then. I said, oh, man, that'd be great. And they were the Orioles Farm Club. And I had a situation. Billy Hunter was the manager, and I asked Billy, I said, I've done some pitching in high school and little independent ball and stuff like that. I said, you mind if I try out? He said, no, come on. So that time, the rookie leagues, you could try out for teams. So I went out and I tried out, and I should have known when they gave me, I think it was number 55 or 59 as a number on my uniform to try out. I knew right then my days were short, because when you get a big number like that back then, your career was probably going to be short. So anyway, I tried out, and he came to me after a couple of weeks, and he said, well, Dave, he said, you throw a knuckleball, curveball, and all that. You don't throw hard enough for us to sign you. I said, well, I understand. But he said, listen, he said, the team in Salem, Virginia, in our league, was a Pirates team in the Appalachian League at that time. He said, I think they're looking for a relief pitcher. I said, do you mind if I call him? He said, they're coming over next week or two, and maybe you can throw a bullpen for that guy and see if that would work. I said, well, yeah, I can do that. So I was still working at the radio station, of course, and so I threw a bullpen for the guy at Salem when they came to Bluefield, and he said, yeah, I think we can hire you. I said, how much you going to pay me? He said, probably around $400 a month. Of course, that was pretty good money back then, I thought, to play baseball. But I said, well, I'm making almost twice that much working at the radio station. I was making a little more money than that. I said, maybe it's better for me to stay in radio instead of my baseball career is probably not going as far as I would like for it to do. I wasn't no Wakefield or Necro or anything like that with a knuckleball. So anyway, I stayed working at WKOI and broadcast the Bluefield Oriole games for 3 years. And I went to Billy Hunter and I said, you mind if I throw batting practice? He said, no, we'd love to have you. So I threw batting practice every day at home for 45 minutes. I'd throw BP, and then I'd go take a shower and then go to the broadcast booth and broadcast the game that night. Because we did all home games and Sunday away games. And so I had a chance to do minor league baseball back then in Bluefield. And that was in 63, 64, something like that, in that era. So anyway, that's when I got. But I'd always been around baseball all my life. My dad worked for the nickel plant there in Huntington, and he coached a team and played on a team that they had little teams there. All the factories around there had baseball teams, and some of the small towns. And so he was always involved in baseball, and I was kind of a baseball rat. I guess about 4 or 5 years old, I was a bat boy, and I was always around baseball. So that's always been my first love, and so I've done AAA baseball in Oklahoma City with the Rangers organization. I did 14 years with the Giants organization in Shreveport, minor league baseball. So and I finished up in 2017 or 18. I worked for an independent team in Sioux City, Iowa, and I did that for 9 years. So I finally decided, maybe I just need to just stay doing Louisiana Tech. So I've been at Tech, and like I say, this is my 50th year at Louisiana Tech doing baseball. So here I am today.
Our guest is Dave Nitz. Going back a moment, we are getting an Appalachian League team back in Huntington. I'm just putting that on your agenda.
I heard it's a wooden bat summer league for college players.
Exactly, and they're actually going to have someone play organ. We're going back to the good old days. There's actually going to be live organ music in the ballpark.
Yeah, I talked to Steve Cott the other day. I said, Steve, are you going to do the baseball there in Huntington? And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do right now. He said, I don't think they've made a decision, and I haven't made one either. So, so I don't know what he's going to do or what the club is going to do either about radio.
I'll tell you what's going to happen is the play-by-play announcer, whomever that's going to be, is going to have to throw BP before they go on the air. That's just a new requirement.
Okay, well, I could do that.
Okay, I'll put your name in the hat. I actually know I know the general manager. We'll put your name in the hat. I think that's a requirement. You're going to have to, if you want this job, you're going to have to throw BP after every home game.
Well, when I was in Bluefield, I threw BP, but we didn't have a screen in front of the mound. And I got hit by one, and you know where, on a line drive. It stung a little bit, to say the least. But
I'm
the
sure.
places I threw BP with AAA team in Oklahoma City and also in Sioux City, and I've even thrown batting practice at Louisiana Tech over the years, but I haven't thrown 2 or 3 years, so I got to get a right leg. I came off that right leg so much. I'm a right-handed pitcher. It kind of bothers me right now. I'm trying to get it taken care of so I can go back out, because I had 2 boys, and we had a when we lived in Statesboro, when we lived in Ruston, we had a batting cage. We had made a batting cage in the backyard. So guess who was the pitching machine? It was me. Anytime they wanted to go out and take a little BP, we just went out the back door and out in the backyard, and we had the net up there and the whole thing, and I threw BP for them.
Dave Nitz with us, the voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs in his 50th year. Also, he's going to be the new. I don't know. We can find a position for you. Yeah, if you want to spend a couple of months in Huntington, I think we can find a position for you, including BP, if you want.
Well, I'd like to stay in radio. That's no doubt about it. If somebody has an opening, I'm interested in talking to people. I'll put it that way. I don't turn people down when they just call me and ask me if I'm going. Well, we're going to talk about it. See what's all involved in it. But I've worked in all the stations I've told you about in West Virginia, and I consider West Virginia is still home. I've got to get a new cell phone. My new cell phone, I can't get what I want on it. My cell phone ringtone is Almost Heaven, West Virginia, and when it would ring, even my dog would bark, because he knew that was for me.
He knew all the words. He knew all the lyrics.
I know the lyrics. I know that. That's for sure. But I consider that area as home, and it always will be. I don't care where I'm living. People kid me all the time. I said, "Yep, Milton on the mud." That's what I would tell them. And a lot of people was like, "What?" And I said, "Well, the Mud River runs through Milton."
Got to be from here to know that. That's the secret.
That's exactly right.
Our
Matter
guest,
of fact, Dan Toney, the former basketball coach at Marshall, every time we'd play, here's old Milton on the mud. He knew where it was. I said, "Yeah, I know where you're from too. You're from Mullins."
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Our guest is Dave Nitz, voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs for 50 years. Now he's going to be looking for some new opportunities because, well, if you work on the radio side of things, you can never give it up. Dave, come back home soon. We'd love to have you. We'll get you into a Cold Cats game. And, of course, if you get to make a trip to Huntington anytime here in the near future, we're going to put you out there on the field and let you throw some.
Well, my problem, I'll tell you, throwing batting practice, when I tried to get people out, sometimes it was batting practice.
Fair enough.
The other team would lay them over the fence.
Love it.
But, Louisiana Tech getting ready to play Kansas State in the Fayetteville Regional here this weekend, and I'll be in Fayetteville for that.
Let's hope that that goes a while for you before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm not finished yet.
Dave, good talking to you. Let's do this again soon, and congratulations on a long career in broadcasting.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on, and tell all those listeners at Milton on the Mud I said hello.
Done. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dave Nitz, everyone, the voice of Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. Milton on the Mud. Dave says hi. We're going to get the text line going, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up on this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Hey there, baseball fans. Are you craving a home run of flavor? Step up to the plate and swing for the fences with sliders from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe. Whether you're a fan of French dip, fried bologna, Reuben, or Southern fried chicken, the Marshall Cafe has sliders that'll knock it out of the park. Each order comes with a side of fries, rounding out your winning lineup.
Take me out to the ball game.
Slide into Flavortown with sliders from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe on the corner of Fun and 3rd Avenue, downtown Huntington.
Get in the groove. Downtown Huntington's premier weekly music event is back. It's Mount West 9th Street Live, presented by New Trail, Garage Beer, Big Truck, The Beast, La Marca Prosecco, and Matua Sauvignon Blanc. This Friday, it's Great Outdoors Marine Night with Litz on the Marshall OBGYN stage. The Little Caesars Kids Zone is back, and Go-Mart Happy Hour starts at 5. Enjoy food and drinks from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe, Sit Downtown Brasserie, and Summit Beer Station. Mark your calendar for June 21st for a ticket to ride to 9th Street Live, a celebration of the Beatles with the Newbies. Friday, August 2nd, 9th Street is Dead, featuring John Ingram's Dead Center and the music of the Grateful Dead. The Thundering Herd Rally is Friday, August 16th. 9th Street Live is driven by Yes Chevy, Yes Ford every Friday night through Labor Day. 9th Street in Huntington between 3rd and 4th Avenues. Sponsored by Delta Hotels, Marshall OBGYN, Wendy's, Mountain Mindful, City of Huntington, Marshall University, Impact Media, Xfinity, and Kendrick Communications.
May is National Electrical Safety Month, and First Energy's Potomac Edison and Mon Power are here with outdoor safety tips. Keep away from power lines, overhead and underground. Always call 811 before you dig. Don't fly drones or kites near power lines, and if one crashes into an electric facility, call your local power company and don't try to retrieve it yourself. For more safety tips, visit firstenergycorp.com/safety. This message sponsored by First Energy, the West Virginia Broadcasters Association, and this station.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-279-0433 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-279-0433. That's 800-279-0433. What do you have to lose? Call 800-279-0433. Again, 800-279-0433.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back. It's the Tuesday, May 28th edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Our text line this hour is 304-396-TALK. That's 304-396-8255. You just joined us. Go back to the podcast later and go get the interview with Dave Nitz, the voice of Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. They're still going. He's been doing that job for 50 years. He's going to be retiring at least from baseball as the voice of the Bulldogs, but he's still looking to go. So if you need a broadcaster, if you need one, I got a guy from Milton that's going to be available real soon. I like that. If you weren't listening just a minute ago, I like the fact that he goes down, takes BP, and then goes up and does the game. I like that. You got to do BP. You got to do batting practice before you can broadcast the game. That should just be. Can you see? I like to see who has a better curve. Like Steve Cotton, Dave. Dave probably got a better knuckleball. He's been doing it longer. Think Cotton would have a slider? Nah, Steve's probably a fastball pitcher. Yeah, I'm thinking Steve Cotton's a fastball pitcher. Possible. We should get them both out there one time. It's okay. We'll see which one can go. So it was good talking to him. There are a couple things we're going to be talking about these next few days. And Marshall football, of course, will be taking center stage sooner than you know. First up, this was interesting. I was looking at this a little bit. Of course, it's that time of the year where we make up stuff so we can talk about stuff. It's that made-up content stuff that we're going to be talking about. And, of course, the one big one's going to be, of course, with the NCAA and the now option to be able to pay players out of the athletic department budget. And, of course, you're going to have these collectives that are going to circumvent those cap requirements because you're always looking for an edge, and that's going to probably create even a wider gap between the haves and the have-nots. So don't be surprised if you see more of a, hey, we could be going back to the days of 1AA, and that's where Marshall's going to end right back up, because there's no way Marshall can outspend a school like Ohio State, a school like Alabama. And with that Big 12 money, I'm sure West Virginia is going to be able to, of course, increase that output to student athletes. And the whole idea of maybe you're going to have roster limits, but you're going to be able to fully spend on scholarships. You're going to be able to commit to scholarships for everyone. That's going to really give some schools a leg up. That's the reason why you see some kids enter the transfer portal. You know, they're not on scholarship. And the reason being is you don't have enough to give. And so you got to prioritize those. So that's going to be a big one. But we're in that point of the season where football, we're going to be talking about football, not talking about football games, just talking about all the things leading up to football. Like, for example, Athlon Sports, an article by Steve Lasson, ranked the coaches of the Sun Belt Conference. And Marshall and Charles Huff, number 4 on the list. G.J. Kine from Texas State is first. Sean Clark came in second. Bob Chesney from James Madison third. And Charles Huff is fourth. Of course, Coach Huff, 22-17 at Marshall. Not a bad place to be. Clay Helton's like 5th on this list. He's got Butch Jones at 6th. Tim Beck from Coastal's 9th. Ricky Ronnie's 8th. I thought I mentioned him. Interesting list. That's from Athlon. And then, of course, FanDuel, over-under. What's the over-under going to be for Marshall this year? They got the herd 6.5. So you take the over or do you take the under? 6.5. Over or under? Producer's booth says you take the under 6.5. I had him at 7. We did this last week. I had him at 7 wins. Was that being a little optimistic? So if I was betting, I'd take the over, try to make my money that way. Some folks might take the under. So you taking 6.5 under or 6.5 over? Which one are you taking? Text lines 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We got to hit the break quickly. We went a little long with the longtime voice of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs and a West Virginia native, Dave Nitz, who will be stepping down as the voice of Louisiana Tech after the season's over. So great to talk to him. We did go a little long, but I wasn't cutting him off. There were some good stories coming out of him, so that was good stuff. Quick timeout. We wrap it up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-279-0433 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-279-0433. That's 800-279-0433. What do you have to lose? Call 800-279-0433. Again, 800-279-0433.
May is Maytag month, and Menards is passing the savings on to you. Transform your home with top appliance brands including KitchenAid, Maytag, Whirlpool, Amana, and Criterion. The Maytag Volcano Black Laundry Set features extra power to fight stains and 16-hour fresh hold option to keep clothes smelling fresh. Save big money on all Maytag appliances. View our entire selection of appliances on Menards.com. Plus, the weekly flyer for more great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
Giovanni's has great Italian dishes. Spaghetti with meat sauce, lasagna, ravioli, manicotti, all dinners served with hot garlic bread or Italian rolls. Giovanni's, the Italian place to be.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
segment. It's our final segment of today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Text lines 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. In the break, I was explaining to our intern the betting odds. Because, Marshall, this is FanDuel's numbers. Over and under, 6.5. Which would you take? The over is plus 124. The under is minus 152. Which would you take? Would you take the under? Would you take the over? And I had to explain the betting to our intern. He's 20. He hasn't gambled much in his career. I mean, he's going into broadcasting, so he's already gambling with his career, but he hasn't gambled. Here's the deal. And again, you do what you do with your money. If you take the over of 6.5, you put down $124 to win $100. That's what you're doing. So you put that down. You bet $100. Here's the deal. Minus, you bet 100. You bet 100 with the plus, you would win 124. If you take the minus, you bet 100. I believe it is if you bet, like, say, for example, if you bet 152, you would win 100 and you get your money you put down back. Again, I don't gamble as much. I know the odds, but I don't gamble because, well, one, I've seen this team before, so I could take the under and they would go over. I'd take the over and they would go under. So plus means that you get the number if you bet 100. Minus is the number you have to bet to win 100. That's it. That's the easy way to explain it. Just kind of put it in a nutshell. I'm helping create a young gambler here. I am corrupting the mind of our... So you want the plus or you take the minus. You get the number if you bet 100. So you want 124, you bet 100. If you want to take the under, you bet 100 and you get your money back. That's what it is. You get what the number is. In addition, you get your $100 that you bet back. So, okay, I want the under. I'm going to bet the under. It's 152. So I have to win $100. How do I do this? I'm going to bet 152 and I get my investment back. Simple, right? You actually stand to make money on a plus bet since you only need to bet 100. But it's harder to win if you do that. It's more of a long shot for them to win. There you go. That does it. Thanks for tuning in. Corrections, comments, retractions, all of that at Paul Swann on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll do it all over again here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So basically, here's the deal. Just to recap. The larger the plus value, the less likely that team or event is going to happen by the odds maker. Now you know. You don't have money as an intern, Ben, so you won't be worried about this betting stuff anyway. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.
Retransmitting on Glorious FM on 94.1 W227BS Huntington. This is 930 WRVC Huntington, celebrating 100 years of broadcasting.